Hello, Flat Earth researchers, debaters, and debunkers. The physics of siphons is still shrouded in mystery to this day and has never been fully understood or defined as a single cause and effect, as the water appears to defy gravity by going uphill before going down. Siphoning is usually done by transferring liquid from a high elevation into a container at a low elevation, or it can be demonstrated the way we see here with the water being siphoned from a full container to an empty container on the same level. Either way, the water has to travel uphill from the full container before flowing into the empty container. Once the siphon has been primed, the water flows up then down without any extra assistance, so it's assumed or theorized that more than one force or phenomenon are involved in the process. For centuries, the scientific consensus was that once flowing, gravity pulls the liquid down while air pressure pushes down on the liquid in the upper reservoir, and that differences in pressure within the enclosed system create the flow, much like liquid in a barometer or sucked through a drinking straw. However, it has been demonstrated that siphons can work in a vacuum and at heights that exceed the barometric height of the liquid, which invalidates the theory that atmospheric pressure and gravity causes the liquid to flow. Consequently, the cohesion-tension theory has been added to the mix of potential physical explanations, which assumes that the water's cohesiveness or stickiness pulls itself through the tubes like a chain or a slinky going down steps. However, CO2 gas siphons cannot be explained with the cohesion, tension, and gravity theory. So ultimately, there isn't one single theory that is correct. Both theories can be used depending on the circumstances, such as ambient pressure, something that exists all around us in most circumstances, unless we create a vacuum in a completely sealed system, which is an unnatural state that must be rectified, a phenomenon which Galileo Galilei described as the theory of horror vacui, or that nature abhors a vacuum, as a way of explaining how differences in density naturally equalize over time. The closest the scientific community has come to describing all the forces involved in siphoning is Bernoulli's equation, which is only really an approximation to idealized friction-free siphon operation. The equation takes 5 different factors into consideration. 1. The velocity of the fluid along the streamline. 2. Downward gravitational acceleration. 3. The elevation of the apparatus in the gravity field. 4. The pressure along the streamline. And 5th, fluid density. Now, you may think that flat earthers abhor the term gravity as much as nature abhors a vacuum. This is simply not so. Gravity is merely a word to describe the downward acceleration of a mass in a less dense medium. You can assume that gravity is a force that creates weight either by pulling or pushing a mass, but that imaginary force simply doesn't exist on its own unless a mass materializes in a less dense medium. Whichever way you want to conceive the mechanics of gravity, it remains just that, a concept. In fact, while you might consider that gravity is a force that creates weight, you can equally consider gravity to be a result of a dense mass entering a less dense medium. And just as the physics of water siphoning remains partially unexplained, and we can at best only describe what we see happening, the same goes for any assumptions about the physics of water, assumed to stick to the outside of a spherical Earth, in which case gravity is merely an assumption for a concept. But in the real world, we know that water always flows to a lower elevation, which means that if we lived on a globe with gravity as is conventionally described, we'd live on an Earth where water wouldn't or couldn't flow. Water simply doesn't go uphill unless it is in a siphon-like tube, such as the way water can travel upwards inside a hill to feed trees on top of the hill, and in turn those trees can send water up their capillaries to feed their leaves. So when you hear the word gravity, understand that it is only a description of downward acceleration or weight of a mass in a less dense medium such as air, for which we can imagine all manner of possible causes with models and equations, none of which prove anything about the assumed shape or dimensions of the Earth. The reality is that just as gravity cannot solely be used to describe how siphons work, gravity simply isn't sufficient to explain away the physical impossibility of living on the outside of a spinning spaceball. So essentially, gravity simply doesn't exist in reality. It only exists in minds, models, and mathematical equations. Thank you very much.